Is it possible that Jesus' death caused a series of supernatural events so shocking that they left even the Roman soldiers trembling in fear? Yes, you heard that right. In today's video, we're diving into the 4 most extraordinary events that took place right after Jesus died and are completely misunderstood in the Bible. Get ready to uncover the hidden side of the crucifixion that many people, even some Christians, aren't aware of. And trust me, the last event we reveal will change the way you think about this entire story. Event 1. Darkness covered the land. As Jesus hung on the cross, something truly mysterious happened. The sky went dark. According to the Gospels, this darkness began around noon and lasted for 3 hours, until 3 p.m., Matthew 27 verse 45, Mark 15 verse 33, and Luke 23 verse 44. The question is, why did this happen, and what does it mean? Now, some people try to explain this darkness as a natural phenomenon, like a solar eclipse. But there's a problem with that theory. A solar eclipse only lasts a few minutes, not 3 hours. Also, the timing doesn't fit. Jesus' crucifixion happened during the Passover, which is celebrated during a full moon. Solar eclipses occur only during a new moon, making it impossible for this event to be a simple eclipse. So, if it wasn't an eclipse, what caused this darkness? The Bible suggests that this was a supernatural event, a sign from God. In the scriptures, darkness often symbolizes judgment and mourning. For example, in the Old Testament, the prophet Amos warned that there would be a day of darkness as a sign of God's judgment, Amos 8 verse 9. When Jesus died, this darkness signified the world's grief and the weight of sin being placed upon him. It was as if nature itself was mourning the death of the Son of God. A historian named Thallus, who wrote around 52 AD, attempted to explain the darkness as a solar eclipse, even though, as we discussed, that would be impossible. This mention by a non-Christian source indicates that something extraordinary did happen that day, something that people struggled to explain. This event was a powerful moment, both physically and spiritually. This darkness set the stage for the other supernatural events that followed, each adding to the extraordinary narrative of what happened when Jesus took his last breath. So, when you hear about the sky going dark, remember it wasn't just a random occurrence. It was a message, a divine signal that the world had changed forever. And as we explore the next events, keep this darkness in mind. It wasn't just a moment in history, it was a sign that something far more profound was unfolding. Event 2. The temple curtain torn in two. As Jesus took his final breath, another extraordinary event happened. Something that would change the way people approached God forever. The curtain in the Temple of Jerusalem was torn in two, from top to bottom, Matthew 27 verse 51. Now, this wasn't just any ordinary curtain. This was the veil that separated the Holy of Holies, the most sacred place in the temple, from the rest of the world. Only the high priest could enter this space, and even then, only once a year on the Day of Atonement to offer sacrifices for the people's sins. So, what does this tearing of the curtain really mean? Let's break it down. This curtain wasn't a flimsy piece of cloth. It was a heavy, richly woven fabric, about 60 feet high and 4 inches thick. Tearing it from top to bottom wasn't something a human could do casually, especially not at that height. This detail shows that this was an act of God, not man. By tearing the curtain, God was sending a clear message. The barrier between God and humanity had been removed. Through Jesus' death, direct access to God was now open to everyone, not just the high priest. Think about how monumental this was. Before this moment, the Jewish people had to go through rituals and sacrifices to atone for their sins and connect with God. The Holy of Holies was a symbol of the separation between God's holiness and human sinfulness. But when Jesus died, that separation was removed. It was as if God himself was saying, "Come in, the door is now open." This act marked the beginning of a new relationship between God and humanity, one that didn't rely on rituals or sacrifices. Interestingly, some historical sources outside the Bible add to this event's significance. The Jewish historian Josephus, who wrote about the temple's grandeur, described this curtain as richly adorned and incredibly sturdy. So, when it tore at the exact moment of Jesus' death, it would have been impossible to dismiss it as a simple accident. Something supernatural had occurred, aligning perfectly with the message of Jesus' sacrifice. And this was just the beginning. More astonishing events were unfolding at that very moment, each carrying a deeper message about the significance of Jesus' death. Event 3. The earthquake and the splitting of rocks. As Jesus died, something astonishing shook the earth, literally. According to the Gospel of Matthew, right after Jesus breathed his last, the earth shook, and the rocks were split, Matthew 27 verse 51. This was no ordinary tremor. It was a powerful quake that left its mark on history and created an unforgettable moment for everyone present. But what was this earthquake really about? Was it just a natural occurrence, or was there a deeper, divine significance? Let's first talk about the magnitude of this event. Earthquakes were not uncommon in the region of Judea, as it lies near the Dead Sea Rift, a major fault line. However, what makes this quake so extraordinary is its timing and the description of what happened. The earthquake didn't just shake the ground, it split rocks wide open. Now, some historians and scientists have tried to connect this biblical account to geological evidence. Research around the Dead Sea has uncovered sediment layers that show disturbances and fractures dating to the period around 31 AD to 33 AD, aligning closely with the estimated time of Jesus' crucifixion. While this scientific evidence doesn't directly prove the biblical event, it certainly adds an intriguing layer to the story. Something significant happened around that time, and the Bible's account of the earthquake lines up with these findings. But let's go beyond the physical explanation and look at the symbolic meaning. In the Bible, earthquakes often signify God's power and presence. In the Old Testament, when God appeared to Moses on Mount Sinai to give the Ten Commandments, the mountain quaked violently, Exodus 19 verse 18. Similarly, when Elijah encountered God on the mountain, there was a powerful earthquake, 1 Kings 19 verses 11 to 12. In both cases, the shaking of the earth was a sign of God's mighty presence. So, what did this earthquake at Jesus' death represent? It signified the gravity of the moment. This wasn't just an ordinary death, it was a cosmic event that disrupted the natural order. The earthquake also left an impression on those who witnessed it. In Matthew 27 verse 54, it says that the Roman centurion and those with him, who were guarding Jesus, were terrified when they felt the earth shake. They exclaimed, "Truly, this was the Son of God." It's incredible to think that a natural disaster, a quake, could have such a profound spiritual impact. This shows that even those who may not have believed before were shaken, both literally and spiritually, to the point of recognizing something divine in what they had just witnessed. Event 4. The tombs were opened, and the dead rose. One of the most astonishing events that occurred right after Jesus' death is something that sounds straight out of a supernatural thriller: the opening of tombs and the resurrection of the dead. Matthew 27 verses 52 to 53 says, "The tombs also were opened, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised, and coming out of the tombs after his resurrection, they went into the holy city and appeared to many." Let that sink in for a moment. We're talking about actual graves opening and people who had been dead suddenly walking around. The opening of the tombs wasn't just random, it was directly linked to the moment Jesus died. The Gospels tell us that when Jesus cried out and gave up his spirit, the curtain of the temple tore in two, the earth shook, rocks split, and then, the tombs broke open. This sequence of events shows that something powerful was happening, something that transcended the natural world. But why did this happen? What did it mean for people at that time, and what does it mean for us today? The raising of these saints was more than just a miraculous event, it was a profound sign. It signified that through Jesus' death, the power of sin and death had been broken. His sacrifice was so powerful that it didn't just affect the living, it reached into the realm of the dead. These resurrected saints were a foretaste of what Jesus had promised, that death would not have the final say. Let's think about the timing of this event. The tombs opened right after Jesus' death, but the resurrected saints came out after his resurrection. This detail is crucial. It shows that Jesus' resurrection was the first and primary victory over death. Only after he conquered death did these saints come out of their tombs, underscoring the fact that Jesus is the firstfruits of those who have fallen asleep, 1 Corinthians 15 verse 20. His resurrection opened the way for others to experience new life, both physically and spiritually. It was as if the world was giving us a sneak peek into the power of his resurrection and what it means for all who believe.